I'd like to welcome everyone tonight to episode 84 of Album Rant. And I have chosen tonight to focus once again, on American hard rock, heavy metal artist Van Halen. And the album that I've chosen for tonight is going to be 1984, released in 1984. Which is their sixth studio release in total, and it would end up, sadly, being the last album to feature the original lineup of David Lee Roth on lead vocals, Eddie Van Halen on lead guitar, Michael Anthony on the bass guitar, and then Alex Van Halen on the drums. Now, this is going to be my third episode of Album Rant that I've discussed a Van Halen album, but I also have an album ranking video out there for Van Halen, and I highly suggest checking that out. It kind of puts everything more into perspective. But in case you're tuning in for the very first time, let me just catch you all up to speed for just a little bit. They originated in the early to mid 70s by two brothers by the name of Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen. And they recorded a ton of demos back then, many of which later became songs, actual songs that appeared on actual albums. And through a wacky chain of events, they eventually recruited two other members by the name of David Lee Roth, who became the lead vocalist, and Michael Anthony, who was the bass player. And in 1978, they released their debut album, simply entitled Van Halen. And it was great. It had hit after hit after hit. So many of these songs still come on the radio today, and I think that is very impressive. Now, not only did the album reach mainstream popularity, but on top of that, I thought the sound was so good on it. It was heavy, but at the same time, it was very slick and had a great production to it, and I loved it. It had songs such as Running with the Devil, Ain't Talking About Love, a cover of You Really Got Me, I'm the One, Janie's Crying, Feel Your Love Tonight, Ice Cream Man, On Fire, and Eruption, which was about a minute 40-second guitar solo, and it is one of the greatest guitar solos ever recorded. So naturally, there was a lot of pressure for them to make a follow-up album, and they came through on that in 1979 and released Van Halen 2, which was another phenomenal classic album that I love so much, and I have reviewed it before on Album Rant. And while I don't think this one was quite as good as the debut, it was still great. And I think I did mention this on the episode of Album Rant where I reviewed it. Probably my biggest complaint about it was Roth. He seemed to have this little screech going, and it seemed to be most apparent on that second album. I'm not quite sure. I could be wrong about that, but it was always something that kind of got on my nerves. But overall, a great album. We had a cover of You're No Good. We had Dance the Night Away. Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Love that song. We had Bottoms Up. Out of Love Again. Light Up the Sky. Spanish Fly, which has often been referred to as the acoustic version of Eruption. Okay, fair enough. DOA, Dead or Alive. Women in Love, and Beautiful Girls. So that was two very strong albums back to back. Could they follow it up again? You bet they could. Because in 1980, they released their third album, Women and Children First. And I thought this one was a lot heavier than that second album, which was a very welcome addition. But we had And the Cradle Will Rock, Everybody Wants Some, which is an absolutely insane number. But it was also heavy, well-written, flowed well. I love Everybody Wants Some, despite the very on-the-nose innuendos. We also had Romeo Delight, an instrumental called Tora Tora, and Lost Control. Yeah, Lost Control. But then we had Take Your Whiskey Home, and a song that I was never really too big of a fan of called Could This Be Magic? But 8 out of 9 is pretty good because it closed very well within a simple rhyme. So then they came back in 1981 Their fourth album came out, and this one was a lot darker than the previous couple of albums, which I am totally fine with. But we had Mean Street, we had Dirty Movies, we had Sinner's Swing, we had Hear About It Later, Unchained, which was the big party anthem from that album. There was Push Comes to Shove, So This Is Love, and then the final two songs are two numbers that are not commonly talked about that often, and I think that's a shame because they flow very well together, and they've got a very dark, murky atmosphere, and it works so well. We had Sunday Afternoon in the Park, which is definitely led by the keyboards, but in this case, that is not a bad thing, because this doesn't sound like synth pop keyboards. This sounds like the epitome of total insanity, and I thought it worked so well. Then it segues into One Foot Out the Door, which closes with an amazing guitar solo from Eddie Van Halen, who is certainly was one of the greatest guitarists who ever lived. May he rest in peace. So after that, the band kind of wanted to take a break. I mean, they just released 4 powerhouse albums back to back to back to back. So naturally they needed a break, but during that time, they did release a cover of Roy Orbison's Oh Pretty Woman and was released as a single. Well, it was a big hit. And so the record company was like, no, you gotta release another album. So they threw something together, and it was called Diver Down, released in 1982. Now, if you remember from that Van Halen album ranking video I made, Diver Down was ranked relatively low in comparison to the rest of their classic material. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it was a good album, but it relied very heavily on covers. Like half the album at least is covers, which I'm not quite sure was the best of best moves, but it exists, and so it is acknowledged. And around this time, Eddie wanted to add more keyboards into their music. Now, he was one of the greatest guitarists who ever lived, and he wants to play the keyboards. Well, David Lee Roth and producer Ted Templeman were very much against it. Like, no, we're not becoming a synth pop band, just hold it right there. And so during the next year or so, Eddie kind of isolated himself and wrote a ton of material in solitude, and he eventually reached a compromise with David Lee Roth, and he wrote some songs that were very synth heavy, some songs that were still the very straightforward hard rock sound that made their previous 5 albums so popular. And that brings me to where we are today, 1984, their 6th album, released in 1984, called 1984. Now, here's right here is the cover art. It was controversial back then. Let's look on the back end. Looks like we're upside down, so let's flip this over. Here is the band. We have Eddie Van Halen right there. We have David Lee Roth right there. We have Alex Van Halen right there. And then there is Michael Anthony right over there. And it doesn't look like I have a track list here, so let's see if we get one inside of this. Well, I'm not too sure what that's supposed to be. It looks like bullets, but I could be wrong. Over here, we have another picture of the band and some credits, and it looks like no track list. So we're going to have to open this up inside, and we're just going to have to use the record. So, a bit awkward, but I guess all you can do is what you can do. So right here is where we start. This is side number 1. And it starts off with the title track, just entitled 1984. Well, it's only about a little bit over a minute, give or take or so, and if you were a listener back in 1984 and you popped this in for the very first time, you probably got very understandably worried, because there is no guitar on this little instrumental whatsoever. It is completely synth-driven. And that was a very popular form of music back in the mid-'80s to the late '80s. And it really sounded like Van Halen was starting to adopt their sound and alter it to fit the current trends, which is generally looked down upon by the dedicated longtime fans. So yes, this thing is completely driven by the synthesizers. It's very slow. It's got this little synthesizer that seems to fade in and fade out, and it's a rather odd contribution. And then of course we have more synths in the background, and it sounds very questionable. And that kind of continues because shortly after the title track, we get the very first big hit of this album entitled Jump. And this is once again driven by the synthesizers. Now, Jump is a very iconic song. It has been permanently ingrained into our pop culture, and I am sure that if you have no idea what I'm talking about for whatever reason, but then I played the song for you, you'd probably immediately recognize that it's that popular, and for good reasons, because all things considered, even though this one is definitely driven by the synthesizers, it is a well-written song, and it's a very catchy song. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes, even if a song is bad, it can still be catchy. And it's very upbeat, it's very up and pop and everything, and it sounds like a very, very happy song. Well, the thing is this, it very much is not, because if you listen to these lyrics, if you pay attention to these lyrics, they're actually quite depressing. And apparently, Roth wrote the song about a man who was contemplating suicide by jumping off a skyscraper. Roth later released a solo album entitled Skyscraper. Not sure if that's connected in any way, but whatever. But yes, the lyrics of this song very much do not fit the mood of the song, and it's a pretty interesting approach, all things considered. So yeah, just let's listen to some of these lyrics. I get up and nothing gets me down. You got it tough, I've seen the toughest around. And I know, baby, just how you feel. You gotta roll with the punches to get to what's real. Oh, can't you see me standing here? I got my back against the record machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Oh, can't you see what I mean? I might as well jump, jump. Don't, 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 don't. Don't, don't. And yes, like I said, it sounds very upbeat, but the subject matter very much is not upbeat. It's got kind of a little interlude in the middle where we actually do get a guitar solo from Eddie, and it is a good guitar solo. Pretty much every guitar solo on this album, and really most of their albums, is absolutely top-notch. I just think a lot of fans would have preferred they just toned down the synthesizers. But having said that, it's incredibly iconic, and I think we should just be grateful for what we got, because Jump is a great song. Now, a lot of people have said that once David Lee Roth left the band and Sammy Hagar joined, they completely changed their style of music and they became a pop love ballady band. That is not true. The pop rock sound really began on this album, but it did not dominate the album. It did not dominate the Sammy Hagar albums, because the third track, Panama, picks things right back up, and it sounds a lot more like their classic sound. It is a straight up, full-fledged hard rock song, maybe even a metal song. I'm not sure if you would really go that far, but it's definitely not a synthesizer song. And this is another song that is very much part of pop culture. Again, comes on the radio religiously, and I gotta say, I'll tell you about this again. When I used to work at the pool and the radio was being played, this was another song that I really started to get sick of because they played it so much. I've kind of opened back up to it, but again, that's one reason why I hate the radio so much. But apparently, this came about because David Lee Roth was criticized for only writing songs about partying, women, and fast cars. And he said to himself, I don't think I've ever written a song about a fast car. But now that you mentioned it, I think I will, because this song is not about the country. It's actually about a car, apparently, and I think that's pretty awesome, actually. I mean, he wrote the song to troll people who claimed he only wrote about various subjects, one of them being a fast car, which he never actually did. But yes, we have Jump Back, What's That Sound? Here She Comes, full blast and top down. Hot Shoe, Burning Down the Avenue, Model Citizen, Zero Discipline. Don't you know she's coming home to me? You lose her in your turn. I'll get her, yeah. And then, of course, we have and then the chorus. Panama, Panama, Panama. And yes, like I said, that chorus, even though it's just the word Panama being sung over and over and over again, it's still very iconic, and I've got to respect that and everything. Now, here is the thing. I may have alluded to this before on this channel, and that's okay, but I have seen David Lee Roth twice live. Once with Van Halen in 2012, and once with his little solo act in 2019 opening for Kiss. I want to say it was 2019, might have been 2020. But either way, I've seen him twice in concert. Now, I am sure that age has taken a toll on his voice, and, you just can't expect him to be able to sing as well as he did back in the 80s. Okay, fine. I'm sure it has. But here's the thing. I have seen many artists in concert who are just as old as he is, maybe even older, and they sounded perfectly fine. Roth sounded absolutely terrible both times I saw him. I thought this was going to be a concert that I could really get into and just bang out and just have a great time. I found it a very frustrating experience. And the thing is this. When they played Panama, that was one of the very frustrating moments because Roth just refused to actually sing the lyrics. He just went off on his little comedy show, and I'm like, dude, you are frustrating me so much. Just sing the frickin' song. And while I'm on the subject, there is another artist that I saw just last summer. Yes, I saw Sammy Hagar with his solo band. And Michael Anthony was with him. So because of that, songs from this era of Van Halen were fair game because Michael Anthony has a writing credit on them. And they played Panama, and it sounded perfectly fine. It sounded great coming from Hagar, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I had a more fun time listening to Sammy Hagar sing David Lee Roth era Van Halen songs than I had hearing David Lee Roth sing them. I know I might get some criticisms for that, but I'm sorry, I just gotta get that out. But still, regardless, even though Roth completely butchered the song the two times I saw him perform it live, it is a great song, and it's one of my favorites. So, we just had two really big hits back to back. Well, would the next two songs be just as big as the previous two? Well, no, but that's not a bad thing, okay? Sometimes the deep cuts end up being better than the actual hits, which is the case in a lot of situations. But we next come to Top Jimmy, and this one doesn't really come out swinging out of the gate. Instead, it's got a very soft, almost bluesy intro. And it's kind of slow at the beginning, but you've probably guessed this. It does pick up once the band comes in and starts accompanying Eddie, who was, of course, playing the intro. And this one gets very, very fast, actually, and it's almost got a staccato feel to it. It's kind of like, da-da-da-da. I probably did that incorrectly, but I'm not going to try to hum this one. I'm not sure if I could do it, but yeah, it does get very fast. I think it's a very welcome addition. Pretty solid song, actually, and it really kind of falls through the cracks often, but yeah, definitely check it out if you only have this album to hear the big hits or something. Of course, towards the middle in the little bridge, there's another phenomenal guitar solo from Eddie Van Halen. And when the guy was playing the guitar, he was, like I said, the very best in the business. And this one, I'm not exactly sure what the subject matter is on this. I do not know what it's actually about. If you know what it's about, I am sure you will tell me in the comments section, so go right for it. But towards the end, it sounds almost a little bit sleazy, which is nothing new for this band. But it ends with what sounds like two female vocalists, might not be, I don't know, but they just go, Jimmy! And it's kind of hilarious, actually. But then the next song is going to be Drop Dead Legs, which actually also starts with another soft and slow intro. I mean, this one is not acoustic, I wouldn't say. It's still electric, but the intro, it's got, like I said, a very slow, not really soft, I guess, but a very slow and another bluesy intro, which I do kind of like. However, this time when the band comes in, it doesn't really get fast. It's still very slow, actually. It still has the same rhythm as the intro, and it's more brooding and a little bit more of a downer than maybe Top Jimmy was. That's not a bad thing because the guitar work is very crunching, very heavy, and I really kind of like that, okay? Now, we never really get a full chorus on this song. We have something that sounds like a pre-chorus, and I'm not going to sing it again, but Eddie and Michael Anthony are the background vocalists, and their melodies, their harmonies are really great. Michael Anthony was very much missed when I saw them live in 2012. But again, that little pre-chorus, or maybe that is the chorus actually, almost sounds kind of poppy in a sense, but it never really quite reaches that. But yeah, I mean, this one is also a very sleazy number. It's also probably very sexual in nature. I don't actually know the subject matter. I've not really analyzed the lyrics too much, but I can take an educated guess. But yeah, Drop Dead Legs, bluesy, sleazy, what's not to love? So what's my favorite from side one? It is going to be Panama. I know it's overplayed, but that doesn't mean it's not a great song. It is, and I really, really love Panama. So maybe let's check out side two. Now, we flipped the record over, and here is side number 2. And it starts off with Hot for Teacher. Yes, Hot for Teacher, which, listening to it, given my current profession, tends to kind of dwell on awkwardness. Yeah, I'm going to kind of toe the line here, but this was another big hit from the band, and it was also released as a single. And something that is kind of interesting about this is it starts with the drums. It has a 30-second or so drum intro, which is actually kind of rare for a hit single, but that's absolutely fine. I love it when bands try something new and try to, diversify themselves. Now, they shouldn't do it too much. They should still be true to who they are, but going in different arrangements, I have no problem with. And yeah, it starts out and the drums are really kind of setting the mood here. And then, of course, the guitar comes in, and man, Eddie has a killer guitar solo at the very beginning. And it's just completely on fire. It's a very heavy song, and I love it. Now, this was another song that was very frustrating to hear in concert because I wanted Roth to sing the actual lyrics. I wanted him to, sing, "Oh, wow, man." I said, "Wait a second. What do you think the teacher's gonna look like this year?" "Oh, what the fuck, man?" "Oh, yeah, teacher, stop that screaming." Maybe, "Teacher, don't you see? I don't want to be no uptown fool. Maybe I should go to hell, but I am doing well. Teacher needs to see me after school. I'm thinking of all the education that I missed, and my homework never quite like this. Oh, I got it bad. I'm hot for teacher. I've got it bad, so bad, I'm hot for teacher." And yes, those are the classic, iconic lyrics. Well, again, Dave decided to go off in left field and decided to start improvising. and sang something completely different. Well, actually, let me back up. He didn't really sing it, he just recited it, which was also very frustrating. But this was another song that he really deviated from the format in concert, and I didn't really like it too much. But yes, it's a very crazy and very sleazy song, and again, the subject matter may not really be for everyone. I understand that, but if you can get past that, it's actually really hilarious, and it is another great song by all means. Now, again, very sexual in nature, but again, are you really surprised given who the artist is? And yes, in the middle, there is a great jam session. It's a very fast song. Eddie is completely on point. His guitar solos absolutely rock. Roth doesn't sound horrible, and he's having a good time with it, which I do really respect. So then we're going to go to track number 2 from side number 2, or track 7 in total, entitled I'll Wait. And this might be a song that most people would not really think would be from the Roth era, but it is. And it sounds like it would really be a love ballad. And well, it's not, but it definitely is starting to teeter more on pop rock. And apparently it's about a Calvin Klein ad, but I don't know the full story behind this. But it does, again, it's very highly run or driven by the synthesizers. Starts off with a synthesizer solo, and it kind of goes from there. And the very first time I heard this, I thought it sounded a lot like The Clairvoyant by Iron Maiden. Maybe I'm the only person who thinks that, or I should say, The Clairvoyant by Iron Maiden sounds a lot like I'll Wait by Van Halen, considering this does predate The Clairvoyant by 4 years. But having all said that, it's a very slow song, and it's almost bluesy in rhythm, which isn't really a bad thing, once again. But I think that it could have been a little bit more hard rocking. I think we could have had some more guitar in here. Now, there is a guitar solo in the middle, which is perfectly fine, not complaining there. But again, just like Jump, it is very driven by the synthesizers, which is just something that Eddie was kind of experimenting with around the time, and we just have to accept it for what it is. It was still a very big hit. I'm not sure if it was released as a single, but I do know I have heard it on the radio frequently, and therefore a lot of mainstream audiences or mainstream listeners probably know this song as well, like many of their other ones. So, what's next on the list? We have track 3, Girl Gone Bad. And you can probably also guess the nature of this song. But yeah, just like some of the previous songs like Top Jimmy and Drop Dead Legs, this one has another very soft intro. And again, it's kind of building to something because, you know, the intro starts off with the guitar and then everyone just keeps gradually coming in. And it gets fast, actually. It gets really, really fast. And I think the songwriting may not be as strong as some of the other stuff on this album. Make no mistake, there is something to love about every single song on this album. I just think that in comparison, Girl Gone Bad may not quite reach the heights of some of the other material on here. But yeah, it's still a very heavy song, actually. You might call this one heavy metal. I don't know, that's up for you, you make the call. But yeah, it's, like I said, definitely very heavy, one of the more heavy songs on here. Chorus really isn't much to write home about, it's just him going, Girl Gone Bad. I think I just butchered that, but I tried my best. So yeah, Girl Gone Bad, not a bad song. But then we come to the very last song on this album, House of Pain, which actually dates back to their very early days. This one, oh man, comes out swinging right out of the gate. Eddie comes out with this very heavy, crunching guitar riff. Down, 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 down. I think I've messed that up, but I tried my best. But this one also gets really, really fast. And yeah, if you thought that Hot for Teacher would be the most sexual song on this album, well, just you wait. Because these are the lyrics. Say you're gonna leave me because I only tie you up. Always love you tender, but you only like it rough. Woman, where you going when you're leaving me again? Gonna pack your bags and leave this house of pain. Heartaches all around, how many times we cried. Said she tried to leave me, but her hands were always tied. If I had it all to do, I'd just do it the same. Gonna fix it so you never leave this house of pain. Okay, but yeah, putting all that aside, this may be the heaviest song on this album, and it's dark, okay? It's not upbeat and kind of pop rocky like some of the other stuff. Oh no, this one is dark and disturbing, but that may be what I like about it. If you're not really into the subject matter of the lyrics, I kind of understand that. Or if you're too classy to admit you're into it, I totally understand that. But it's putting all that aside, just ignoring the lyrics, it's a very hard rocking, heavy tune, and it's another one that has really fallen through the cracks, and I think you gotta really check it out if you haven't. Something kind of interesting. Usually, typically in songs like this, we have a verse, chorus, then a bridge, and it goes back to the verse, chorus. It actually doesn't. Because when what you would think would be the interlude or the bridge starts up, it really just never really leaves that. It's kind of like a two-part song, and the last part is really more of a jam session. It is a great, heavy jam session. And then it fades out with Roth going, I did that the best I could, but yeah. House of Pain, very underrated song, absolutely insane song, but that's not a bad thing at all. And that is going to conclude my review of 1984. What is my favorite song from side 2? It's House of Pain, and I did not really have to think too hard about that one. Great album, but like I said, unfortunately, this would end up being the last album with the classic lineup, as David Lee Roth would embark on a solo career because he did not like, again, the direction that Eddie wanted to take the band in, and the band was replaced, David Lee Roth was replaced the following year with Sammy Hagar, who maybe I'll talk about again at some point on this channel. But anyways, having wrapped all that up, I want to say thank you all very much for joining me this evening. Next time, we're going to watch a band take the world by force, but until then, have a very pleasant evening.